Welcome, Dave. We're going to learn about faith-based range management.
Thanks, Allison. So this is a little different, and I'm going to come at this a little bit differently. I do want you to know that I do have a background understanding livestock production. I grew up on a working ranch. That's my father above, and that is my working heifer herd when I was just getting ready to start the business myself. And then I met this girl with big blue eyes, and she said, I want to go to college, and so it changed. I want to have this slide first so that no one misunderstands me in any way. I have a profound belief in and support for using the scientific model and method combined with moral commitments to fairness and compassion as a basis for our society and the decisions that we make and the norms of it. And in my view, those elements are kind of at risk right now in society. I'm not comfortable with how we are applying those. And so I want to talk a little bit today about why we don't do what Bob and Naomi and what Allison will explain to you. Okay, so faith-based range management. So first of all, we have decades of available rangeland science. Okay, we understand the principles of how rangelands work. This is not, there's always new frontiers and new things to learn, but we understand range science and have for decades. But for a lot of people, that's not enough. And we have the cowboy myth, we have a romanticized rural lifestyle, and that's powerful. We have appropriation of religion, we have appropriation of patriotism, and this myth that economically livestock grazing sustains these small communities. And I would just like to, I don't want to do that. I want to draw your attention to the lower image of the t-shirt where we have the attractive young woman on a powerful, that's mine and I turned it off. My apologies, that's embarrassing. Scam likely. I thought I turned it off, I apologize. But look at that. So there is a young attractive woman on a domestic animal that probably has the most power and activity in our society, overlaid on God and country. And Bob, your research I have admired for years, but there's a segment of the population that you don't compete with compared to that. and that's real.
I know.
Yeah, and that's real. And so how do we deal with that? Well, here's some reasons that happens. First of all, the myth that economic interests overpower ecological interests. And I want to show you this picture. This was taken on a field trip to the New Mexico State experimental range ranch. And we were there with those students. This was the lab the week after the professor there, who is well known in the range department, gave this is the advanced range class, and said, why do ranchers overgraze? Are they just stupid? Are they just ugly? Are they just mean? No, it's economics. It's a bad year. There's a mortgage due. There's not enough. It's a drought year. We don't want to cut into our breeding herd. It's not that they're evil. It's just economics, and we have to, work with them and that kind of thing. I was on the trip because he was going to be on sabbatical and asked me to teach his class the next year. So I was listening to his presentation and stuff. And so I was riding home with him, and I said, we're kind of in a drought year here on the experimental range of one of the, at least they see themselves as one of the premier range departments in the United States. And looks like we kind of hit this hard this year. He said, well, I know we did. It's a drought year, but the department needs the money from the ranch, and so I hit it a little hard this year. Okay? That's what happens year after year, and during drought, the range deteriorates inexorably. Shifting baseline syndrome, Bob talked about this. I'm showing there on the right the Little Lost River called the John Days River. That's where in 1820 he set up one of the first forts in the West, and he set it up there because there were beaver, and they trapped them. I grew up in the valley next to that. I've been on there. There's not been a beaver there for 60 years. Okay? That's a shifting baseline syndrome. If you look from the two pictures on the right there, that's from my range class. That stream reach is about 3 miles apart, the top and the bottom picture. The reason that there are willows in the bottom picture is because there's no cattle grazing there. Okay? And when these students drive in the West, they think the top picture is normal. Okay? It's not. Okay? Okay. Disproportionate influence by people with a lot of confidence. And all of these people think that these individual people pictured here think that their opinion is more important than yours. Every one of them do. And they're winning. Okay? I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Application of science after those other three principles. It's not that our managers, and I was a manager for 14 years, when you add up those numbers that Allison gave, I think I'm about 95, so thanks for that career. But it's not that the agency people don't understand that science needs to be applied, and it's not that the science is not compelling, it's just that these other factors override it, and we apply science afterwards. Okay? And that's the picture of the t-shirt that we just saw. It just fits. Okay? It's normal. People don't even know they're doing it. So if science were applied without the preface of social factors, and these two streams and riparian areas are, I don't know, within 15 miles of each other. Same elevation, same soil, same aspect. There's one difference. See if you can see what it is. Again, science is not applied first. So I was leading a crew of New Mexico State students on this Forest Service district on a project called Aggies in the Forest, trying to teach them real-world management application skills. I was friends with the range con that was on that district. We were housed there. We got a call and a complaint about this top stream called Stone Creek. He said, it's overgrazed. He said, well, I'll go out and do a green line. I said, Ralph, let me go out and do it, and I'll take my students. So I went out and did it. I have a PhD, so I was able to tell that didn't meet green line standards. We came in. Ralph gave the permittee a call. That permittee was not in the area, so he had to call his cowboys. They came up and they took the cows off the next day. So, and Ralph was quite pleased with himself. He said, we had PhD level evaluation. We got the cows off right away. Bob, what's that going to look like next year? Is that going to rehab next year? No. Okay. Shifting baseline syndrome. How long, Bob, would it take for that stream will come back? That's River Alder. How long would it take? 15 years?
It's incised, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
15.
Well, you can get some functional recovery, but you've lost the floodplain connectivity. That will take forever.
And we don't have, yeah, it will take a long time. And we don't have the cottonwoods.
No. But if you had beaver in there, you might get it back up quicker.
So not next year.
Not next year.
All right.
All right. Sorry.
Yeah, not next year. Application of science comes only after the influence of those previous principles. For example, I'd like you to think about this. On public land, you can have oil and gas development in an area, or you can choose not to. You can have recreation options, whatever they are, or you can choose not to on a chunk of ground. You can have a timber sale in a forested area, or you can choose not to timber that. You can have a road, or you can choose not to put a road in there. These are all choices. You cannot not graze. It is under the policy, under the Taylor Grazing Act, if a person does not graze and turns back in their permit, that will be reissued to someone else. It cannot not be grazed. How does this relate to scientific management? The impacts of domestic livestock on semi-arid rangelands are clear. Okay, we should not have ungulates at that level concentrated for that long. Just like the bison in Yellowstone, they need to move. Okay, they need to move, and that's real. I know some of you might be a little uncomfortable with that, but Yellowstone in places is overgrazed. Okay. Most of the laws resulting with policy are based on scientific standards or thresholds, and biodiversity and natural native plant communities and wildlife and population and soils. However, on damaged ranges, removal of livestock, although it's universally restorative, is not done. Any person who reads Bob and his colleagues and many other kind of science would say, oh, if I'm a fair-minded, thoughtful person, we've got to stop this right now. Okay? And that's not what's happening. Okay? So rangeland health is not improving globally or locally. And there's enough in spare guidance to know what to do if we had the will. And the continued diminishment of these rangelands does not move the needle socially. Okay, so here's some solutions, and this is probably the only time ever that these three people have been pictured together on a slide, but it's Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and it's Mark Twain, and it's Jackson Browne from pop music. So I'm going to revise what Solzhenitsyn said, and I'm going to apply it to the agencies, because I don't want to say they're lying. But we know they're not meeting standards. They know that they're not meeting standards. They know that we know that they're not meeting standards. We know that they know that we know they're not meeting standards. And still, they're not meeting the standards. Jackson Browne said, they say it can't be won the way the game is run. But if you choose to stay, you wind up playing anyway. And that's where we are with the agencies. So there is nothing, and then finally from Mark Twain, there's nothing to be learned from the second kick of a mule. So what can we do? I'm working on third-party willing seller allotment buyouts. And we can do that by statute, by proclamation, or sometimes by NEPA decision. I would encourage some of you who are activists, rather than requesting a no grazing alternative in NEPA, which is not going to be selected, that you ask for a buyout provision to be attached to the preferred alternative in NEPA. Well, the rancher says, I'm not going to sell out. Yeah, but his son will. Okay? So don't fight that fight. Just get that in the NEPA, get it in law wherever you can, and finally, I would encourage, particularly some of you younger folks here, run for Congress. I mean it. You're saying, oh, I could never do that. Well, there's a lot of pretty darn foolish senators and congresspersons, and you could be one too. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave.